ever suspected her as a spy? Question mark!
Mary Elizabeth Bowser was born in the year 1839 in Richmond, Virginia. She was born into slavery in the household of John Van Lew, a wealthy hardware merchant who was considered a slave there until his death. John Van Lew died in either 1843 or 1851, varying. After his death, his daughter Elizabeth Van Lew convinced her mother to free the slave. They also bought freedom for most of the slave's relatives. Mary remained in the household after she was freed and worked as a paid servant. Elizabeth noticed how Mary was very bright and sent her up north for an education at the Quaker School for Negroes, Philadelphia, late 1850s. Elizabeth used her status in Richmond to go to places to gather information. She was nicknamed Crazy Bet, for often while spying she would walk through the streets and mumble and mutter to herself with a crazy-eyed look. Elizabeth had Mary transform into Ellen Bond, a slow-thinking, slightly crazy but able servant. She convinced a friend to take Ellen along to help at some of the many events held by Varina Davis, wife of Jefferson Davis, the president residing in the Confederate White House. Mary proved herself well and able and was eventually taken on full-time in the Confederate White House.
I found you can do anything when you really need to. I used what was available to me, my country, my money, my intellect and charm, and a good circle of friends. I surrounded myself with good trusted people such as other prominent people in Richmond and former slaves. Nobody would suspect these folks of spying. I even involved my mother. I think she enjoyed a little adventure at her old age. I thought about where and how I would get information to the Union. Remember Mary Elizabeth? Well, she came back home when I contacted her. She willingly went undercover as a maid and nanny in the Confederate President Jefferson Davis' house.
Mary had exclusive access to important documents, and while cleaning the president's office, she would read documents and remember them word for word because she had a photographic memory. When the Davises entertained friends, she would listen in on the conversations while serving and reported any information she deemed important. Regularly, Thomas McNiven, the baker and spymaster of Richmond, would go around on deliveries, and when he stopped at Davis's home, Mary without fail would be able to go outside and pass any and all information she had learned since she last gave information to either McNiven or Elizabeth Van Lew. After she passed the information would be passed to generals, including General Ulysses S. Grant. Eva Tuguri Diaquino was very similar to Mary Elizabeth Bowser. Diaquino was the one most associated with Tokyo Rose during World War II. Tokyo Rose was a group of women who would broadcast over radio and try to demoralize American soldiers by highlighting defeats, hardships, and sacrifices. Diaquino was born in America but never applied for a passport. She flew to Japan to visit a sick relative but became trapped there when the war started. Diaquino was asked many times to give up her American heritage and go for the Japanese. She refused. Eventually, she took a job as one of the many women who reported on radio, became infamously known as Tokyo Rose. After the war, she applied for a passport again, but many were outraged she wanted to return to America after everything she had done. Diaquino was arrested, tried, and found guilty. She spent time in jail and had to pay a fine of $10,000. She was pardoned by President Gerald Ford on January 19, 1977. In the year 2006, also the year she died, Eva Tuguri Diaquino received the Edward J. Hurley Citizenship Award from the World War II Veteran Committee. She died later in the year in Chicago, where her family lived. Exact birth and death dates for Bowser are unknown because after the Civil War, the government destroyed documents about Van Lew, McNiven, and spies to protect them against any Southern sympathizers. Eventually, Bowser was suspected for unknown reasons and fled the Confederate White House sometime before the end of the war. Although Mary Elizabeth Bowser died long ago, in 1995 she was inducted into the U.S. Army Military Intelligence Corps Hall of Fame in Fort Huachuca, Arizona. She was described as follows.
Miss Bowser certainly succeeded in a highly dangerous mission to the great benefit of the Union effort. She was one of the most highly placed and most productive espionage agents of the Civil War.